back to the castle, where nobody's innocent, everyone's dramatic, and common sense did not make the guest list. Let's recap the Traitors Season 4. This is kinda unhinged. What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I'm back with another The Traitors episode, and we are on Season 4, Episode 5. So we begin this episode with the players coming down for breakfast, and Dorinda says that she is increasingly becoming more suspicious of Ron, and she's convinced that he's a traitor. Kristen says that she's suspicious of Colton, so they typically clap as the other players come in from breakfast because, obviously they're happy that this person made it through the night. But when Ron comes in, they barely clapped, and he's like, wow, I can definitely tell that they're not happy to see me, and they're not. So they look around and they notice that everyone's at breakfast except for Monet and Johnny. So obviously one of them has been unalived. And it turns out that Monet was unalived. Of course, the Traitors had to get rid of him because he threw out Lisa's name. That wasn't surprising. So Alan comes in and he says that the players need to get ready for the mission and it's going to be moist. So Lisa says that she's going to make it her mission to try to sway people to banish Ron at the round table later that night. However, Maura and Michael are leaning more towards Colton, and they're talking about how he was able to sway everyone to vote for Tiffany. And then Ron is saying that he believes that Dorinda and Michael are traitors and that they're working together. But Kristen is convinced that Colton is a traitor, and she's telling Candace that Colton is definitely a traitor. So we get to the mission, and in this mission, the players have to find 8 statues and bring them back to the fountain and put them in the correct locations, and then turn this big wheel that will restore the fountain and the water will shoot out again. Well, hidden with each of these statues are also shields. And Alan tells the players that if nobody chooses a shield, then there won't be an unaliving that night and everyone will remain safe. But if even just one person picks up a shield, then there will be an unaliving. So everyone's like, nobody pick a shield. So they break off into teams of 4 and they go out and they look for these statues. So the first group that finds a statue, they see the shield and they decide that they're not going to take a shield. And the second team does the same thing. The third team does the same thing, and so does the fourth. But by the time we see the teams go after the 7th statue, when they look underneath it, there are 4 shields and there are 4 people on the team. So they could all grab a shield and nobody would know that their group took shields. And we see them discussing it. They kind of want to, but they don't know. They don't know whether to do it. They don't know who to trust. And we see the team that goes after the 8th statue, there's also 4 shields under theirs, and they're having the same discussions. Natalie's like, man, I don't know who to trust, but we know that we can trust ourselves. And she says she's looking at Dorinda, and Dorinda's looking like she wants to do it as well. But of course, we don't know if either of these teams decided to take the shields or if other players took the other shields. So they make it back to this fountain as the time is running out. They are able to complete this mission in the time allotted, and they added $16,000 to their prize money. So they all go back to the castle and, they're breaking off into groups, they're mingling, and we see this awkward conversation with Dorinda, Steven, and Ron. And Ron says that he believes that Michael and Dorinda are traitors. And Dorinda's like, what are you talking about? Why would you think I'm a traitor? You're probably the one that's a traitor. And Ron's like, well, I've been watching you and Michael working together and you back him up on everything. And we see Colton trying to trip Michael up into admitting that he's a traitor. And Michael tells Colton that you should be laying low after what you did to Tiffany, after how you rallied the troops to get Tiffany banished from the castle when she was a faithful the whole time. And Colton's like, yeah, I took a shot and I missed, but I'm taking another shot at you. And then a little bit later, Michael's walking past and he hears his name called in another room. And then he calls out Colton again, and he's like just shouting at the top of his lungs. And then we go into the round table. And the first thing Candace says is, do we want to address the shouting? And Michael's like, yeah, well, basically, I was just telling everybody how Colton's the ringleader and how he isolated Tiffany and how he made her feel and how he's isolating me the same way he did Tiffany. And then he said, and who's better at coming in here and holding a secret than you? And that triggers Colton because he's like, why are you saying that? Because Colton said earlier that when he was on The Bachelor, he thought that he was straight. So I guess he realized that he was gay after he was on The Bachelor, so he had been holding that secret for 29 years. So he felt like Michael was saying like, oh, you held that secret, so of course you could come in here and lie. And the other players called him out on it, and they're like, that's messed up to say. And he's like, well, I wasn't trying to talk about his sexuality. That's not what I meant. And, they didn't let him slide on it. And Colton tried to defend himself by saying, well, I didn't go after Tiffany on my own. I listened to other people, and other people confirmed my suspicions about Tiffany. And then Colton said that everyone that voted for Michael on the first night are gone except for Jam Jam. So he feels like Michael is a traitor. And then Ron throws out his theory about Dorinda and Michael. And Dorinda's like, look, I've tried to get to know your family. I've asked you questions and you don't want to answer. And Ron's like, I don't care anything about your family. I don't want to know any of y'all's families. I don't want to know anything about you personally, because he doesn't want to be biased. And this is how he's choosing to play the game. And Natalie speaks up and says that they should vote Michael out and get rid of him. Eric says the same thing. And then Michael says the guy with the magic ear. And then they chewed him out for saying that. So then it was time to vote. And Ron got a lot of votes, but Michael got more. And Michael was banished from the castle. But before he left, of course, he had to go to the Circle of Truth. And he told them that they just got rid of the smartest, the most good looking, and the dopest faithful ever. And needless to say, the players were shocked and confused by finding out that Michael was a faithful, but I think they were still happy that he's gone because he caused a lot of chaos in the house. So after the round table, Kristen tells Eric that she believes that Colton is for sure a traitor. And Johnny tells Candace and Tara the same thing. Meanwhile, Colton throws out Lisa Rinna's name because he's like asking Dorinda, like, does she normally act like that? She's been acting really quiet. And I know she's not quiet like that. And Dorinda's like, no, she is acting a little strange. Luckily, Rob was in the room and he heard it. So when the Traitors had their meeting that night, Rob was able to tell Lisa that Colton was on to her. And Candace is like, well, you got to start talking more. And that's where the episode ends. I think this was a pretty good episode. You guys let me know what y'all thought about it in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want more of the Traitors content, then go ahead and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.